It's time for the Assault on Your Ears, known colloquially as Lower Dorks, a Star Trek Lower Decks podcast. On our screens is nothing. There's nothing on my screen, Stavros. It's black. It's just a deep, dark blackness, endless dark beyond all imagination. What is happening?
Well, the reason for that. Yeah, I have a reason for that. It's because you're looking at a screen, but you should be looking at a book. I think that's the problem.
Oh, shit. Right. I have paper in front of me.
Yeah.
God, this is how it all started.
Yes.
This is where I began. Within pages.
Yeah, so for this episode, we are going to be taking a look at the Star Trek Lower Decks USS Cerritos Crew Handbook, written by Chris Farnell. We actually have him with us today. Welcome, Chris.
Hi.
I just swing this one, Stavros. This the usual nudie pictures blackmail situation, or something a little more friendly?
Well. Yeah, well, I'll leave my methods up to your imagination. But welcome, Chris. It's great to have you with us.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, so written by Chris and published by Titan Books. So in case you're wondering, the Cerritos Crew Handbooks, it's an in-universe document supposedly given to new junior officers aboard the Cerritos. And it goes over everything from the senior staff to ship facilities to equipment and aliens and more and more and more. All stuff that's shown up in the show. And Aaron, it's not on screens. Well, I guess unless you get the ebook version, I guess. I assume there's an ebook, but I have a paper version like that.
It's specially replicated.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I can only assume someone replicated it and then put it into an Amazon box and sent it to me.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I guess if nothing's on our screens and I have to use one hand to hold a document to read, that's really only leaves me one hand freed up for a cup. And this questions me, Stavros. I mean, tell me we got something good tonight.
Yeah. So what we're drinking? So there's coffee involved in this.
Coffee
drinks that we're having. Yes.
That explains volumes. That it's just coffee.
It's definitely just coffee. I mean, we're recording this in various time zones, so it's Chris, you may be drinking, I believe, just standard coffee, like coffee that you drink in the morning because it's actually morning there.
Coffee with a tiny bit of milk and too much sugar. It's like the reverse alcohol.
Is there any particular brand you want to shout out, or is it just regular old coffee?
To be honest, it's my partner who buys the coffee and actually knows things about it. So I just find what's in the nice-looking coffee pot and spoon it out.
Gotcha.
The coffee explains the distinct hint of pumpkin spice I'm getting right now.
Wow. You have a little pumpkin spice in yours, Aaron?
Hey, you know what? I have never denied being a basic bitch, so there's that.
I'll go into a little bit more detail about it at least. I'm getting an iced coffee, so it's iced, and we like to enjoy a little bit of alcohol on this show, so I've added a little bit of Irish cream and a little bit of vanilla vodka, so it's a perfect drink.
Wow, you lush. I thought we were just doing coffee. I just have plain coffee in my cup.
That's completely loud.
Obviously not plain. It's pumpkin spice coffee, which is the best coffee, but it's delicious.
Of course. Anyway, let's jump right in. So, Chris, why don't you tell us more about yourself and who you are and how you got into Trek and how you got into writing this book?
Yes, just give me a novel to write. Stavros.
Is that all? Yeah, that's it.
Tell us your life story, Chris. Not to put you on the spot.
Yeah, lifelong Star Trek nerd, and basically got a message from an editor I'd worked with before saying, "Are you free to work on a television tie-in?" And I said yes, because I like working and I like money. And then he said what the actual job was, and then said, "Yes, I will do this. How much do I need to pay you?"
Oh, very Ferengi of you.
It's pretty much the book I've always wanted to write. Since I used to watch Star Trek, a year or so after it aired on BBC Two in the 90s, I used to be involved in online play-by-email RPGs where you were playing junior officers and things. So I've been in training for this one for a really long time.
That's amazing. And of course, this book is not entirely written. There's a ton of illustration. What kind of a hand did you have in coordinating the illustrations, or is this kind of like somebody at Titan?
We had, obviously, the design is great, and we've got some excellent designers on it, but during the writing stage, well, basically there's a lot of, in brackets, saying, designer, put this here, make this look like it's running out of space here, etc. But honestly, you really have no idea what it looks like until you get the PDFs a few months later. So I'm pleased it's come out looking as good as it has.
Yeah, it is a fantastic design. Like, the writing and the design work all really worked really well together. This is a style of book where it is written, it's a fictional work that is written as if it were a real piece of documentation within the context of the universe, the fictional universe. And I was really impressed by how well put together this is. And I'd kind of actually even forgotten. This was something like I really enjoyed back in the day, how enjoyable this type of thing really is. Just fantastic. Really well put together. The writing is great, and the artwork really complements the writing very well. It's very clearly made by people who were in sync in a certain way.
And yeah, from the very beginning, the sort of main thing was this had to be an artifact. We wanted to make something that felt like you got handed it when you stepped off the shuttle.
Yeah.
Right.
So everything, even down to the comments, needed to have an in-universe justification for why they were on the pages.
You know, to follow up on that, one of the things that I was really impressed throughout the course of this book that is very much owned to the writing is whenever you're writing a character, you need to give that character a voice. And whenever you're writing for television, that's kind of easy because you just write dialogue and the actors bring a lot of the voice with them. But when you're doing it in like prose, that is a lot harder to do, especially in like small bits of prose. And I was very impressed throughout like the entirety of this book how well voices of the characters came through in the writing. Literally, the only character whose voice didn't come through was Ransom.
Why is that?
Yeah, to be honest, I think Ransom... Season 4, I think Ransom's filled out a lot more. I think if I was doing it again, and you spend a lot of time still thinking about things you'd add to the book now. But I think Ransom, yeah, he's got more dimensions than I think the book gives him credit for, if I'm honest.
Oh, so you're saying that the intention of the book was not a character assassination of Ransom. It was just a unhappy accident.
Aaron's a bit of a Ransom fanboy, so, you know, he's a little protective.
He's a good guy who is just very, very into his bodybuilding and personal appearance, and that's fine.
Nothing's wrong with that, yeah. Was this book written in, like, basically between seasons 3 and 4, is my guess?
Between drafts, we actually got copies of all the season 4 scripts. So we were able to go through and try and incorporate things and tie off areas where we might be, you know, contradicting it, making it, you know, moving everyone into their quarters rather than having them in the corridor, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. Was there a big process of trying to get this, you know, ratified by, you know, the production staff of the show, or is this kind of you got some leeway to kind of operate on your own on this one?
I mean, the showrunners were involved, and we had sort of video calls with them during the writing, and the manuscript went back and forth a couple of times going through feedback on it. But I'm amazed with some of the stuff we did get away with. I think if you look at the past incarnations of the USS Cerritos, there's one that I basically dared them to cut. The Leif Erikson class one on page 74. Yeah. I told them that if they cut that would technically make it canon.
That's awesome.
That is amazing, because that is the one thing in that section. I really love that section. really well written, and the whole, oh yeah, some of these stories may be apocryphal. That is so like Star Trek fandom, right? And the fact that the Leif Erikson is the one thing you call out as like kind of like challenge them to cut it. That is my favorite bit from that section, because it really does. It ties into Ent, and it ties into the history and all the ridiculous colonization stories that pop up throughout Star Trek. I've really enjoyed that segment.
Yeah, no, that was just me having so much fun, just filling in those imaginary blanks there. But also, you don't want to go stepping on anyone's headcanon as much as you had to make sure everything got approved by Mike and co. You wanted to make sure that also you weren't treading on the story that the fans had put together in their head as well. So I try to make sure that there's leeway for people to take things as they want. Although I'm still going to insist that the story about Admiral Jellicoe is absolutely canon. That happened.
That was going to be one of my questions is, how canon is this thing? The showrunners are involved and of course, the internet always argues about what exactly is canon, but how canon is this?
I mean, in practical terms, it's all canon until it isn't.
Sure.
Everything that is in the book is stuff that Mike McMahon has read and signed off on and allowed to be published. If he gets a great idea for an episode that means he has to contradict something in it, I don't think he's going to lose sleep over that. But stuff like with the sort of past incarnations of the ship, we left that wiggle room there over how much of it is apocryphal, but also that is there now. So if at some point they do want to talk about other ships named Cerritos, it's possible they might draw on that. But we don't know. I don't know what's in season 5 either.
Well, I think that is one of the things that any like beta canon writer for Star Trek is like. It's like kind of the height of accomplishment is to have something you have written be added into the alpha canon, the on-screen canon. And that's actually been happening a lot lately, and not just in Star Trek, but in a lot of fandoms, where things that people have posited or ideas that people have had just gets picked up as, this is the story of our universe, and that's just got to feel really good.
Yeah, it's just getting to add bits to the story and fill in the gaps that you wonder about as someone who's watching it. One of the things that I most enjoyed was getting to go a deck down from the Lower Decks cast and start talking about the bar staff and the guy who runs the transporter console and gamma shift and things, just stepping into the background of the show about the background characters.
I did have one question about that whole, expanded universe part of the story, and especially with the name Cerritos. You went through all this history of, the name Cerritos, much like the name Enterprise from, the main storyline. History will remember. There is a reference to the Humboldt-class Cerritos. Is that a reference to something I don't know? Because, I know there's, the Humboldt currents. Is there something I am, not familiar with here that I just missed completely?
That was actually... The name came from the name was my partner's idea. I think it's named after a type of squid. The Humboldt squid? Yes, that's right. So it's named after a squid, but that is also one of the... that's the only Cerritos, actually, that was suggested by Mike when we were sort of talking about wanting to leave there a little bit of wiggle room over how canon it was. We put the underwater Cerritos in as a kind of tip of the hat that some of these might be completely made up.
One thing I wanted to note is having the little like comments that you might see in like a Word doc or like a Google doc with all the characters, editing over each other and responding to each other outside the main text. Got a little PTSD from my real life jobs having to do that. It was like a little too real. It was a nice touch.
Yeah, way too real.
Well, I just want you to bear in mind that I wrote this and I put these tracked comments on it in the manuscript, and then I gave it to my editor who put his notes on it, and then it went out to Mike and Dayton Ward and the sort of legal team and everything, and they put their comments on it. So I just want you to picture what the manuscript looks like.
Yeah. So there are comments on the comments section.
I have no idea how in a professional environment something like this gets made. Where there's not just like a moment where somebody is like, this is a goddamn mess. I have no idea what's going on here. Okay, I'm gonna delete random things and add random things, and should I respond to this, or is this an in-character? Oh God, I can't even imagine.
You need a system. There's got to be a system.
Pure nightmare fuel.
Yeah, you just generally have to just focus on the bit that you're working on now, and just sort of hope that the entire thing kind of coagulates into a book by the time you've finished it, which I think works out.
That happened in this scenario, so I guess there's nothing to worry about.
Yeah, but it's amazing the things that you learn.
Stop feeding his ego. Stop feeding his ego.
If you close the book now, without looking, how would you spell Combadge? Come on, you're both big Trek nerds, so this should be an easy one. How do you spell Combadge?
Combage.
No, there's two M's.
C-O-M-B.
Two M's.
A-G-E.
C-O-M-M.
No, there's one.
No. I can see the problem.
Yeah, no, it's actually apparently Combadge. I was well out to date. I did the two M's and two words. But apparently that's an archaic usage now.
Yes, yeah. I was right! Eat it, Stavros!
I don't know.
Wait, was I right?
C-O-M.
I just assumed my spelling was right when Stavros is wrong.
Yeah, no, it's C-O-M. That is the current usage.
Insanity.
Well, Stavros, if you watched with subtitles on, you would know this.
Oh, yeah. Another argument for watching with subtitles, I guess. All right, let's start getting into some of the beefy segments on this in the book we can talk about. So I think first up, one of the major sections is character sections, and we get to go right through the main cast, even including some of the lower deckers, the deck below the lower decks.
Can we just take a moment to acknowledge that Mariner is the first person who gets her own segment? Yeah. So, okay, well, I guess nepotism is in full swing in the Federation.
I mean, to be fair, I don't think she's supposed to.
Boimler's got to get this editing situation
very much going in and editing the document.
But the implication is, because we get the bit from Captain Freeman, did she take a look at it before Mariner or after? Raises a lot of questions.
Well,
I don't know.
We spent a lot of time talking about this during the writing. Sort of when are people looking at it? What order are things happening in? How did it arrive at this point? So I think the timeline that we're looking at is Boimler put together his clean draft, and then Mariner messed about with it, and then Freeman reviewed it and gives Mariner an off-screen telling off. I think is the timeline that we're looking at.
That's great that was even put together, because that's the kind of attention to detail that
it's definitely way more effort than I would have put into this.
That's why you're not a writer at
that is probably true. That's why I am a what are we, 29th tier podcasters as opposed to actually getting something added to beta canon.
Well, we're very much constantly talking about what actually is the book in universe, and we really wanted to aim for we're not really talking about a sort of technical manual level text. What we're talking about is
Yeah.
more, when you start a job and they just give you this sort of staff handbook that tells you all the like social events and where the public toilets are and where to go during a fire drill, and you just take it and put it in your desk drawer and never look at it again.
Is that something that British people get? Because in America, they give you like 5 seconds of walkthrough, and they're all like, "Good luck, son," and you're like, "Screwed. This is it. My career is ending today."
It varies from job to job, but I've seen real world equivalents of this without, the annotations.
Yeah.
So,
should we jump right into some of the
let's go.
things, or did you have more?
Well, we need to focus on Mariner's section. We definitely can't skip the fact.
Yeah, there's a lot in the Mariner section.
Nepo baby got her front and center moment.
I only picked up. I mean, Aaron, we were talking about this before the show. I feel like we're going to focus on hyper specific things, but completely different hyper specific things. Just because there's,
you mean like
dense.
Earth's newbie travelers?
Yeah, actually, I got that one as well. The acronyms for TNG and ENT are
the rest of them weren't that great. And I honestly, I'm not here trying to tell you how you should have done TNG because I can't come up with a better acronym. As soon as we stop recording, I will. I'll be like, "Oh, it was obvious." But the ENT acronym is fantastic. Earth's newbie travelers, just fantastic. Like, I praised those old scientists so much.
Yeah.
I also feel like, they also have the lost era that people talk about, which is what, PLE? That really needs to get added too.
Yeah, Star Trek needs more stuff set during the kind of beige onesie era. That's my take is...
As long as they have different uniforms than the beige onesies.
Yeah, I really hate the beige onesie uniform.
No, bring the beige onesies back. I love the beige onesies.
What?
No! Oh, man.
We're hitting some strong feelings here on beige, so it's a little strange. But
EMP uniforms back. Those were
those ones. That's it.
That's what he's talking about.
Uniforms are the best uniforms. Enterprise. Not
You're
the
talking
Maroon Monster, not the motion picture.
You're out of control, Aaron. I'm envisioning like a cross between Enterprise and TMP, where it's just like it's the Enterprise style, but it's just all in beige with like a fanny pack pouch.
Take the motion picture uniforms and give them pockets and
zippers.
Problem solved.
They've got that little like digital fanny pack on the front that.
Yeah, what is that?
You can store, I don't know, but I bet you can store all sorts of things in there.
I have always assumed it is super ultra modern style fanny pack. It's made of plastic. You pop it open, you shove your junk in it, sticks to the walls. You're all good.
I bet there's a toothbrush, razor.
Yeah,
maybe a little compass. Everything you need.
And if they're the cricket style phasers, probably a phaser too.
Yeah,
a little type 1 in there. Yeah, makes sense.
You never know when you're going to need to stun someone. I mean, I've obviously never ran into this problem in the street, but I've been in a lot of meetings where I'm all like, this person just needs to stop talking, but I don't want to kill them.
This is like Mariner always having a phaser on her, even though it hasn't been explicitly drawn in the scene. Be like, it's in fanny pack.
Well, yeah. I mean, she always has the phaser and the drink, apparently, based on her most recent season.
Anyway, we're getting way hung up on the details here. But anyway.
Bring us back in, Stavros!
I thought those new guys was great. So I love the acronyms. I hope upon hope that they will show up in the actual show.
In the original draft, it also referred to a period where there was this massive revival of interest in disco, but we're not supposed to know about disco.
Also good.
Wait, so hold on a second. I'm lost, because I'm assuming this is the Discovery era, right?
Yeah. But Discovery
What was the acronym?
It wasn't an acronym, it was just that time when everyone got really into disco.
Also good. Anyway, the other thing I wanted to call out about Mariner, wow, we're really getting deep into the Mariner section, but she mentions the cosmic koala in there, so like, is that just like there's a cult around the cosmic koala, or like people know about it already? It just shows up a lot in the show, but I don't know if people like acknowledge its existence. Like, is there a religion built up around it already, or people just know about it? It's like a known thing. It's like Q, except the cosmic koala.
I think my headcanon there is that it's a sort of, I'm not sure what the word for urban myth is when you're on a spaceship, but one of those, basically. You'll probably have heard stories at some point, but there's not really a defined belief system around it, I don't think.
Got it. Okay. It's kind of word on the street, yeah, kind of a thing.
A corridor myth? A transit myth? I have no idea.
Jeffrey's...
We'll work on that, and we'll come back to it.
I'll take this to my team. We'll workshop it. We'll figure out what we're going to call it.
You have a team just for this? Wow.
Well, I mean, they're just the hobos down on the corner, and they don't turn me away as long as I give them money.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else on Mariner? I'm kind of jumping around as far as which characters I want to talk about in the character sections, but
I just want to come and defend her honor for one moment and say I don't think we should be talking about Mariner as an Epo baby unless we're going to talk about what the whole deal with the Enterprise G. We have got this supposedly post-class, post-discrimination utopia, and the Enterprise G is basically all the kids from the Enterprise D's crew. Mariner is, fairly middle of the road on that scale.
Well, I mean, thanks for ruining any enjoyment I could ever make from an Enterprise G story. God.
They were literally going to call the spin-off Star Trek Legacy, which...
Yeah.
It's as
necessary Legacy even gets made, which...
The whole thing, and that's the whole thing. The whole thing is, if you're going to bring in a legacy character in Star Trek, you have to have them earn it. It can't just be, I am related to character X. It has to be O'Brien. We bring him in because he was a character who did his job and he was good, and we add dimensions to that character.
And he's the most important person in history.
That's how he got that job on DS9.
Yes. Well, I mean, that's not how he got the job, but that's what propelled him from being Chief O'Brien at work to being the most important character in Star Trek history.
Okay. We'll give Mariner the benefit of the doubt.
Get us back on track, Stavros.
I'm trying really hard.
We're on page
coffee.
2, so I think we're doing well.
We can do this. We can do this, guys. Okay. I want to move on to Ransom because... First of all, I love his just taking shots at Stevens, and then the fact that Stevens just gets his whole page immediately afterwards. But Ransom doing links, so in Cetacean Ops, so I have questions, because when they show Cetacean Ops, the length of the pool of Cetacean Ops is like...
I bet the length is
30 feet.
And not width.
Yeah. So, like, is he diving to the bottom of Cetacean Ops and then coming back? Is that a...
It's like in Star Trek The Next Generation, where... the med bay takes up half a deck and is this huge high-tech hospital, but we only ever see 3 rooms.
Right.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So there's more to Cetacean Ops, basically.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Okay.
I love all the Cetacean Ops bits, by the way. The whole recurring gag of take your shoes off. So good. So good. But you know what?
That was great.
Ah, man, just Ransom, he kind of comes off as an unintelligent blowhard. And as we all know, Ransom is the true blue Starfleet. He is all that you can be in Starfleet.
It's true, he's got layers.
He's like an onion.
Yeah, no,
Wait,
I think...
he never lived in a swamp. He's not like an onion. He's a person who has a lot of character and depth. Without being a troll.
He's a bit Season 1 Ransom. I feel like we've got Stevens in there to advocate for him, so there's that.
I will admit, the whole Ransom shitting on Stevens, and then Stevens telling you how great Ransom is. Pretty good
back-to-back
gag.
true,
Yeah.
enjoyed that.
Yeah.
That's sort of one of the areas where you get the kind of the design doing their own thing. Because when I wrote the manuscript for it, I had that Stevens bit as just like a small box out on Ransom's page, and then I get the manuscript, and he's got this whole double-page spread with all Stevens' little holiday snaps of him and Ransom together, and I love it.
Yeah. I think either way would have worked, but yeah, they're both really good presentations.
So, as I recall, that you kind of get a micro section of some of the junior officer responsibilities. First of all, I love this. It totally fits the theme of the book as a welcome to the Cerritos. Like, here's the jobs you're going to be doing stuff. And the thing I especially liked and I'm going to focus on, is the emptying of the holodeck canisters, and the entire backstory behind that is provided.
Why does this come up every time we do a recording? It's always about the holodeck canisters and how gross they are.
But I love that the backstory is provided. It tells you exactly why they do it, why they, how they do it, how they do it. So I completely enjoyed that, even though I kind of cringed through the reading of that entire section out, but it was exactly the kind of thing I'm looking for in a piece like this.
Yeah, and this is sort of one area where I think me and Mike differ in our headcanons, because he sort of mentioned during the whole process of this that the holodeck gunk goes to a different matter repository to the one that you get the replicator matter from.
Yeah.
And I think if someone's telling you that, they're just trying to protect you, because it's all the same atoms.
Totally.
The holodeck gunk is in your sandwich. I'm sorry, that is just the truth.
Yeah, where does the holodeck gunk, not the holodeck gunk, but where's the gunk from the latrine go then? And what do they use that matter for? Raises a lot of questions.
It all goes in the replicator.
Yeah.
You're on a long space mission. There's nowhere else to get matter from. There's nowhere else to put matter. It all goes into the replicators.
Yeah, if I'm starving, I don't care where that matter comes from. We'll all go down the alive route when we're starving and our former flight mate is lying in the snow dead. Right, Stavros?
Yes, exactly.
I mean, he doesn't have to wait for extreme scenarios to happen. He's all like, yeah, I'm feeling a little, feeling my peckish. Hey, still alive over there, buddy?
Well, nobody on the Cerritos is really starving. They just want some nachos.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Nobody cares where those nachos come from. As long as there's not some horrific implications of the nachos. As long as it's just like, matter is matter, and nobody died to make me this matter.
Well, we'll talk about the transporters later.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, God. Let's not go down that route. No.
Too many questions.
Yeah. What's
body horror type things. Yeah. So I think from there we get more into more character sections. First off, the Miglimo psychoanalysis sections. So this is the one rare instance where, I don't know about you, Chris.
Aaron, I think we're a little where you're wrong. Yes, that is true. This is the one rare instance where you're wrong.
Well, the thing is, Miglimo, I don't know. I don't know about you, Chris, but here on this show, or at least me, I'm not sure how quality of a counselor Miglimo truly is. And all of the psychoanalyses are very on target and in depth. So kind of implies that he's an actual competent counselor. I'm not sure that's true.
Well, I think there's a difference between someone being perceptive and knowing what you need, and someone actually being someone who you would want to talk to. So, true. Everyone in Starfleet is trained to, maximum ability. I think that Miglimo is as annoying as he is because that's a tactic. I think it's strategic.
Oh, I see where you're going.
I think that's how he gets results.
Right. What do you think, Aaron? Does that bolster your opinion of the Miglimo section?
I was going to go with you can be really competent at the core competencies of your job, which is to, for Miglimo, he identified his core competencies as identify what's troubling this person, what is wrong in their world.
Right.
But he is an absolute failure at how to resolve that issue because he's really good at like people who he can understand. Like Boimler? Yeah, we just want to be the best at everything we do. And it doesn't matter what path that takes. He can like look at that person and be like, yeah, I get this. I get where your struggles are. Here's your resolution path. But for someone like Mariner, who it's all like, I understand where your problems are, but I have no idea how to resolve that. So let me give you a food metaphor. Like, that doesn't work for Mariner.
Well, also, if you want another reading, if you look at patient F, 3 different people think that's referring to them. And it just reminds me a little bit of my dad, who was a teacher. And I used to see him preparing school reports. And he used to have this one school report that he would just have in Word and then just mail merge it to get the kids' names into it. And it was just something like X is an enthusiastic child who is trying hard to achieve this level in his subject, and it would just have that text, list of names, insert, and it just fits all. So I wonder if Miglimo has a similar document for his psych profile.
That would make sense.
The whole astrology route.
He's a Pisces.
Are Geminis all really this way? Yes, all Geminis must be this way. And it's just vague enough to where every person can identify in this aspect.
Very well could be. It fits his MO. But let's move on to Dr. Ta'ana. The main thing that stood out to me here is apparently the bleep is actually, I don't want to say canon. It's made official by apparently difficulties with the Universal Translator. So according to this, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but this is the bleep is actually heard by the characters in universe because there's a problem with the translator.
It's just, the language she's using is just so offensive that the translator can't handle it. There simply isn't an equivalent swear word in Federation standard.
Is it okay? I was wondering if there's censorship built into the Universal Translator according to this, or if there's just actual no equivalent.
No, it's a simple failure of language.
Right.
We just don't have cuss words that bad.
I love that aspect. As ridiculous as the Universal Translator is in Star Trek, oh man, that is just fantastic. Where it's all like, the implications of this word just cannot be directly translated into your language. And that comes up frequently throughout Star Trek. TNG obviously had Darmok, and Voyager had the episode where they found the weird bug aliens that they couldn't translate for. It's very much a Star Trek thing, but the idea that some things are just perfectly attuned to offensiveness that they can't really translate to another language. I absolutely love that.
I love them getting it worked in like that. It was just chef's kiss type of thing, especially with regards to Dr. Ta'ana. It was great.
Yes. Utterly ridiculous, totally fantastic.
Yeah, I do think the Universal Translator is one of those sort of givens of Star Trek that has so much storytelling potential to mess around with, but we just sort of don't look at it. It's just kind of there, constantly in the background.
It's also one of those that throughout the series has evolved as a concept, because it was originally introduced in TOS, and it was like this big device they had to take with them, and then it was something in Voyager that automatically happened, but yeah, just a fantastic concept, but never really explored enough.
Yeah, really, if they want to follow through on it properly, all of the alien characters in Star Trek should be having really, really poor lip sync, shouldn't they?
Yeah, exactly.
Should be like watching a badly dubbed movie.
Yeah, there's some AI at work there. It's approximating lip movements. It's not just audio. It's got to be just the lip movements.
Thank you for reminding me of the 90s anime craze, where if you watch with subtitles and you watch with the English dub, you're just like, why, these don't parallel at all.
Amazing. But anyway, let's keep trucking along here. So the Shax section. Yeah. So here's interesting section with Shax, because his text is fairly eloquent, but when the character in the show is often speaks in exclamations, short exclamations. But the thing is, in season 4, I think there's more Shax promoting holistic wellness in his security details. So you kind of get the impression that the ability to be eloquent is there, but you don't really see it that much.
I love Shax. From the very beginning, Shax has always clearly had a poet's heart. He's just this great, big, sensitive, emotionally intelligent teddy bear who also really loves violence. He's just a complex guy.
Yeah. Was there a temptation to just write his text in exclamations, like short exclamations, or was that always the route to give him more of a voice?
No, for me, the thing that I always loved about Shax is just that he is this deeply sensitive guy who just really, really cares about the safety of the ship.
Yeah, Shax really decently written in this, but it also throughout the series, he's always portrayed as this over-the-top, bombastic character who everything he does is informed by his experience in the Bajoran occupation. But then, there's the whole Bajoran pottery, there's the Boimler being added to his, secret security detail. All of that is really well done in portraying, yeah, you always have to be prepared for combat. You always have to be prepared for violence. And I feel like this book really does a really good job of creating a voice for him that is his, well, this is when I'm not concerned about things getting serious. His whole advising the captain bit about fire torpedoes. Should we fire torpedoes? Maybe fire photon torpedoes, or no, quantum torpedoes. That bit is really good, and it really plays in with what we've seen on screen, especially with his eject the warp core in the finale, was just fantastic.
Yeah, I was expecting an ejection of the warp core recommendation instead of torpedoes suggestion, but did that come up?
Well, it's named after Worf for a reason, because I think Shax is very much in that school of the security officer's job is to stand at the back of the bridge and advise opening fire, regardless of what else is going on at any given moment.
Got to be this unofficial school of thought where I hope they don't actually teach the Worf method at Starfleet Academy, but maybe that's just me.
I feel like the warp method at Starfleet Academy would be more nuanced than what Shax is teaching.
Yeah. Consult with the counselor to see if they truly do deserve quantum torpedoes.
I feel like the recommendation. Shax is teaching do the most extreme thing and trust in Starfleet to meter your responses.
Well, the thing is, they always have this one solution that they bring to the table, but the thing with Worf was he would always advise taking precautions, and everyone would immediately be like, no, that's far too gung-ho, that's not what we need here, and then something starts eating people every time. Yeah. So I think we could stand to listen to the Worf method a bit more often, I think.
I think so. It makes me think of I don't know if you guys have seen the YouTube compilation of Worf getting shut down by people in command. I feel like there needs to be an equivalent of that for Shax, where they're just like, eject the warp core, no! So just to show how obvious it is.
That was the whole gag with Worf, right? For the whole first season, his whole thing was, I'm the big tough guy. But it's all he ever does is get beat up by people.
That's true.
Yeah, he's there so that you can beat him up and establish the threat.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. The red shirt, the evolved red shirt, he just doesn't die. He just gets beat up. Anyway, let's move on to Kayshawn's section. So actually, Kayshawn, that provides, there hasn't been a whole lot of Temerian cultural details in the show proper.
Because Temerians are terrible.
What? How dare you? You're fired.
How dare I? How dare you?
But there just hasn't been a lot of details on how this culture works.
There's no way that the Temerian linguistic modus operandi would work. It just doesn't make any sense.
I just wouldn't publicly criticize someone who is most beloved by people who make memes of things. That seems like you're inviting trouble.
I will fight every meme maker who shows up at my door. I will go. I was going to say I would go Worf on them, but are we talking season 1/2 TNG War?
You would, yes.
Yeah. No, I feel like that's a bad idea.
Please don't beat up Aaron. He's fragile. He doesn't need it. Where I was trying to go with this is that there's a lot of detail provided on Temerian culture in this one entry than basically all of Temerian culture in the entirety of canon Star Trek.
Temerian slang, such a weird concept.
Well, it has to exist, though, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah, it's got to.
If you've got...
That goes to the heart of the whole Temerian linguistics. Doesn't make any sense. Because, I can use slang anywhere, and there's at least going to be a core of understanding. But, when everything is based on weird analogies, it's just, it's terrible. Euphemisms.
Well, what really starts to boil your brain is when you start to think about how much of the English language is based on weird analogies.
Metaphors in general, yeah.
Yeah.
At least getting that information there was the cool part.
It was very interesting to have him have all these euphemisms or these not analogies, but what are they? They're references to stories, metaphors. Yeah. Where it's just they're all so hyper localized, where it's all especially for a new crew member, none of the stuff he references is going to make any sense.
He's preparing people for speaking with him. He's preparing people to be like Ransom, how Ransom took the time to learn some of his analogies. That's what he's doing here.
Great moment in the series.
The one here that I'm most proud of, I've got to highlight it, is when I was researching it, I obviously went through the episodes and Memory Alpha and stuff, looking at actual Temerian phrases that we had. And there is one call that goes Kira at Bashi, which means to tell a story. So I was able to get that fourth one from the bottom based on that. I don't know if you've got the book handy there, but it's Kira at Bashi.
That is one of the things I would say about this book. I was constantly loading up my browser and being all I feel like this might be a reference to something. What is this a reference to?
It's definitely full of that.
Yeah, no, you do want to do that reference that 3 people are going to get, but those 3 people are going to really enjoy it.
The thing about Lower Decks is there's so many. It's full of deep cuts. People are going to get it. It's going to be more than 3.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. Anyway, let's keep the pace up here. I want to talk about Billups' section. And, I get the sense that there's a section where Billups kind of goes into the details on how warp drive works and how FTL in general works.
This is such a fandom moment where,
I loved it.
Oh, God. I cannot even, lay down how well I enjoyed this bit. Oh, it was so good.
The best part for me is reading through it. I'm this makes sense. This makes sense. This makes sense until the last sentence or two is finally when it got too complicated.
Oh, if you want deep cuts, the final sentence, the bit about the isopalavial interface, I think that is from the episode Little Rascals, where Child Picard makes up a bunch of techno-babble to try and fool the Ferengi.
I love it.
It's one of those things on your checklist. If, this is the first and, you don't know if it's going to be the only chance you're going to get to write Star Trek, one of the things you just have to do is write a huge block of technobabble, isn't it?
Well, and one of the things it did really well was it just threw stuff out there. And it's kind of like, I kept going through and be like, I feel like I've heard this before. I need to check on this. But eventually there's a certain level of fatigue where you're just like, I'm just going to accept this. This has got to be true.
It wears you down. Yeah.
Wears you down. And that is how Star Trek wins in the end.
That's right. Throw enough technobabble in here, people just accept it. That part of Billups' section was pretty fun. After Billups, we get into an equipment section, and I know there's a lot of different types of equipment that is listed in here where you get the kind of rundown. The one that stood out to me was the different tricorder types, and thank God we finally have an explanation of what the different freaking stripes mean.
Who cares?
And why people want the purple stripe. Excuse me.
Who cares?
So many people care.
I care a lot. Okay, you can't have the random energy being poop out a purple striped tricorder, not have it mean something, okay? So now we find, much like the holodeck canisters, now we have a difference between the striped tricorders. Finally makes sense, and thank God for that. It's forever in real canon. They do different things.
Doesn't matter.
They absolutely matter. Back me up, Chris.
It is crucial. You have to know what the different stripes do. You can't just have things be different colours for aesthetic. It's all got extremely sound reasoning behind
So
it.
you can't just repaint things and assume them to be taken as, different. I mean, that's obvious. Just like you can't glue on some greebles and expect to have a different Enterprise than or the other Enterprise greeble additions. Look, the point is, it doesn't matter.
I feel like you're stretching, you're reaching.
It doesn't matter.
And the fact is, the stripes matter.
The assumption is you paint on a different color, you add a little bit of greeble, and you just assume. The point is, this is not the thing you've seen before. And it doesn't matter why it's different. It is different, and you just accept it.
You know what? I think we'll just have to accept that you don't.
Well, the question is, do you think Rutherford cares why the tricorders have?
I don't think anybody in Star Trek cares. It's like in the real world. When the new brand
You're really stretching.
roll out. And
how dare you? Rutherford cares.
I think he does, and I think it's the same thing as in the real world when the new brand of Nikes roll out, and the sneakers kids are like, "Oh yeah, it's got the extra padding in the ball. It's amazing," and you're like, "Dude, it's sneakers with a different color. What's the deal here? Come on, guys."
That's that's a great analogy, by the way.
Fantastic.
It's definitely
analogy.
the tricorder stripe is exactly the same as the sneaker.
Yeah.
New generation.
I'm glad that you're on board with it. Although, one of the things I noticed, I'm looking at your notes right now because, I'm terrible at taking my own notes. One of the things you never talked about was the comm badge segment.
Oh, did you have something about that?
So is this a pre-existing bit of lore where the comm badges being the communication device was like that change happened because people kept leaving their communicators on primitive worlds? Or is this brand new? Because I love that bit of lore.
I mean, I made it up, but it makes sense.
It does! I accepted this. I was literally on Memory Alpha trying to find all of the episodes where they left technology behind, being all like, this has to be a reference. There has to be some sort of commentary on this somewhere.
The Starfleet was just like, they've had enough of McCoy and Reed. They've caused enough problems, and you know what? Just pin it to their damn chests, and now it's problem solved.
Yeah.
Why you gotta be hating on Reed, man? I mean, I get McCoy, but Reed? Yeah, people make mistakes. Cut him some slack.
User error. User error. Preventing that user error. Someone was managing risk at Starfleet HQ. They're looking at stats about how many temporal, societal, trajectories have been altered by leaving behind communicators, and someone made a correction.
Yeah, I feel like if risk management was a part of Starfleet planning, banging aliens would be the prime directive. Don't do it. No banging aliens.
Very, very likely. Someone's disobeying orders there.
That's the thing. You can only really introduce a rule if people are going to follow the rule. So there's no point saying don't bang aliens if people are just going to do it anyway.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Yeah.
People are going to bang aliens, and there's nothing you can do to stop them.
What a rabbit hole we've fallen into once again. Let's move on to let's talk about Badgey. So this happens several points in the book where Badgey 2.0 gets a cameo, I guess you call it, or there's more than a cameo. He's got its own segment, and I think that it seems like the Badgey 2.0 concept was before Goodgey was a thing, because of course now we have Goodgey on the ship at the end of the season. But are they friends? Is Badgey 2.0 and Goodgey, are they friends if they exist at the same point?
I think Badgey 2.0 is probably... Well, bad is still in the name. I don't think... It's fine. He's, in print, so he can't harm you, allegedly. Yeah. But, yeah, I would be careful how far you trust Badgey 2.0.
There's one of the flowcharts where it's like identifying impersonators in the crew. And I felt like I was just playing a game of Among Us when I was going through that flowchart. I don't know if you played that, Chris.
I think there's a joke at the beginning where they refer to alien infiltrators.
Right.
Boimler says that imposters feels like a more natural word to use here. Badgey's legal algorithms are fully functional.
Yeah.
So we're stuck with infiltrators.
Great. Yeah, just in case I'm identifying that reference there. That's good. But I love the Badgey inclusion, so.
One of the things I like about Star Trek and about Lower Decks within Star Trek is it's science fiction and you're encountering brand new things every week and strange aliens and phenomena, but also this is their job. This is, Tuesday, and you have procedures for these things. So as well as, if you're going to do a Lower Decks book, you have to have Badgey in there. Also, I just like the idea of there being a sort of standard set of choices to go through when you encounter an Earth-like planet or an alien shapeshifter or an evil eye.
Like something has come up before. There should always be a reference. I really loved in the latest season where they dealt with the Tuvix situation, and they're like, "Oh, this has come up before. Let's do some research," and then they're horrified by the response that is existing. And that rarely comes up. It came up though in the TNG season 1 episode, The Naked Now, I think, where they did a great job of paying lip service to, this has come up before, so there's got to be some sort of thought on how to deal with this problem.
And by Lower Decks, it's happened enough times that they have a holodeck training program.
Also good.
Well, one time is too many.
Let's move on to let's see. So there's a good description of the shifts on board the Cerritos.
Okay, I'm going to steal your thunder, Stavros.
Yeah,
please. I got to know what's the deal with Gamma Shift. Why Gamma Shift? Why are they the Dax Elite Force?
Yes, I love this reference to Elite
Force. Well, you've given it away, haven't you? I just love that video game, and I've wanted the Cerritos to have one.
Surprisingly good.
That's the entire. My sort of pet idea is I think they should do a Lower Decks Elite Force game, and they should call it Reasonable Force.
That is a great idea. I would play the shit out of that game. Do it in a whole cel-shaded style.
It's a very Lower Decks game, isn't it? Yeah. And in the original game, you're playing the lower deckers. You are those sort of ensign level red shirt characters. So I felt the Cerritos had to have their own hazard team.
I think it makes sense. I mean, based on Shaq's MO, I mean, it makes sense. Just put it that way.
I love the fact, though, that it's portrayed as...
It does.
Yeah, everybody thinks this thing exists. And it's like, does it really, though? I really like that. It fits in with the rest of the style of the book.
Yeah, you want to leave that wiggle room, but also, yeah, again, I definitely believe that the Cerritos hazard team exists.
Totally. It's I kind of mentally went to there's the I think first season episode where like the dudes that have like the black bars over their eyes, they go with Ransom on the
yes.
Like that's the Elite Force.
Where Tendi is the cleaner.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Thank you.
That's
I'm adding that to my headcanon.
Yeah.
That is a great call out.
Yeah,
definitely. No, that's all there then, isn't it? There's no arguing with
it. That's right. So according to this, there's 4 shifts on the Cerritos.
Well, I mean, that just makes sense, right? Because Jellicoe tried to get the Enterprise to get...
Yeah, that's where I was going with that. Yeah, so this is the Jellicoe strategy.
And Enterprise D was all like, oh, no, I'm Riker. I think I'm the greatest ever because I can't sit in a chair properly. And Jellicoe was all like, dude, what the fuck is wrong with you people? Like, he was right. Jellicoe was right the whole time.
He was.
Freaking hashtag Jellicoe.
He had all good points to make.
I was very disappointed with his appearance in what's the name of that show? In the CG series. Prodigy.
Oh, Prodigy.
Yeah, his appearance in Prodigy,
yes.
man. Like he has like only a few seconds of screen time, and he's very like, oh, I don't know about this. Oh man, Jellicoe is the guy. He's the dude who knows what's going on and makes the right decisions. Freaking hashtag Jellicoe did nothing wrong. Freaking Jellicoe, man. Loved that.
Is this a clear Jellicoe celebration of having 4 shifts on the Cerritos, or is it just kind of a happy accident?
That's just a happy accident. Okay. But yeah, Jellicoe is one of those things that just had to be included.
I'm sorry, I've now lost all respect for you. I assumed this was a clear Jellicoe was right call out, but clearly not a.
I mean, what I meant to say was, of course, that's a deliberate reference. That was planned from the start.
There we go.
I'd buy that for $1. Anyways.
Anyway, the other thing I wanted to call out is Delta Shift. So we've got Ensign Asif, a little blurb here, but I feel like this is there's a little contradiction in season 4 where they kind of go like, we've met the captain 5 times, and in the book,
in that bit they're saying it to another lower decker. Now they're telling everyone. I mean, I'll tell the truth to some close friends or low-level peons at work, but man, when I got to broadcast wide and far, I'm going to lie. I am going to lie deeply and as
fair enough,
hugely as possible.
That's fair.
Well, the Delta Shifters think that they're doing great and important work, but they still have to deal with the fact that they're asleep for most of the
they're basically the lower deckers of the lower deckers.
Yeah, as you were saying that
also,
before.
You've got to bear in mind that Boimler is the editor of this book. So...
I always felt like Boimler was just a terrible editor, by the way.
He didn't even clean up the comments. I was going to get to this at the end, but he doesn't even print the latest version. Replicate the latest version.
Well... He has an arc, but I think when it comes to the Delta Shift, you've got to understand that history is written by the Victors, and the Victors hate Delta Shift. So that is definitely going to inform their section.
Yeah. All right, let's move right along to the shipboard activities spread, the board spread.
Oh yeah, that was so much fun.
Yeah, that was great. And I think, Aaron, you probably picked up on this too with the Shakespeare societies.
I know you're on who is running the Klingon Shakespearean group.
Yes.
But, like, who wouldn't? Like, I love Shakespeare, ironically, but if somebody came to me and said, hey, we're running a Shakespearean society where we put on plays of Shakespeare in the context of, ancient Filipino culture, I'd be like, sign me up. There's a level of ridiculousness that you cannot enjoy there. It's a big gag in Star Trek, the whole Shakespeare and the original Klingon. I don't get you, dude. I don't get why you're not on board.
I had to do a lot of reading for this one gag, to be honest with you. And there's so much argument over what he meant in Undiscovered Country when he said the original Klingon. Like, some people think it's just that it's better translated into Klingon. Some people think it's a sort of piece of Klingon propaganda that they're claiming that Shakespeare was actually written by a Klingon and the Federation appropriated it. So, again, I tried to leave the gag open so that you could read it according to your own headcanon, but there's a pretty decent argument that the Klingons actually think Shakespeare was one of theirs.
I had always assumed it was a kind of a bit of a tongue-in-cheek comment where, like, they felt like some of the Shakespearean stories were much more Klingon feeling. Like, I mean, even the, like, less Klingon stuff, obviously there's the famed Romeo and Juliet, but, like, Macbeth is, like, that whole story of, houses and family and conflict. That is so Klingon, right?
So if you've got Klingons, as they are at the end of Star Trek 6, where they're this sort of totalitarian Soviet stand-in society, if that society comes across a bunch of plays that are totally their jam, and they're written by a human, are they going to say, oh, wow, the humans can write some good plays? Or are they going to say, well, this was clearly written by a Klingon and the Feds stole it?
I like that headcanon.
I just like the various interpretations. The fact that you can go all these different ways, and all of them are valid, makes the gag have even longer legs. So it's all appreciated.
Exactly.
From there, I think we get to all the different ships that have bared the name Cerritos.
Yes.
Yeah. Any nuggets of wisdom about? I mean, there's all kinds of stuff on these pages, Chris. Like, what stood out to you when you were compiling this together?
Well, we've talked about the Leif Erikson
right.
class, the one that was there in Star Trek 4, but has been erased from the timeline.
Right.
But I think my personal favourite is just the Antares class grain shipment drone.
Right.
Yeah, the idea that the Cerritos has a lineage that goes back to one of those little automated space trucks from the animated series is something I enjoy.
I love the idea that, like, so much of the stories in this segment are, they're not these big grandiose stories. And then it's very common to do that, but then you add on this was a drone that carried supplies, carried grain shipments. Just an extra layer of mild ridiculousness that whole segment really, really worked well. I do have one question about this, though. So the California class Cerritos 2371 launch date. Where did that come from?
That took a lot of emailing to get them to nail down to specifics for that one. They talked vaguely about it being launched towards the end of TNG, but I had to sort of press them to get them to name an actual date. So 2371, that is canon, as near as we can tell. And I think this is the first place it's actually written down.
So basically it's going to get retconned at some point in the next few seasons.
Hey.
Yeah. Good old Star Trek. Keep it vague until you have to nail it down.
Yeah.
Yeah, certainly my whole experience with this whole section was like, yeah, all of these ships are all have a similar, not the shiniest ship of the bunch, and I feel like that was probably the intention. It felt like, at least.
Yeah, right back to, I like the idea that guy's company from Future's End just sort of ending up as a kind of gone bust.
I do like that you actually reference, like, there's this moment where in Voyager there's this huge, this doesn't parallel with our own history. We're past this point and none of this jives. And it's all like, yeah, they tried really hard and failed miserably. Did not expect that to come out of this bit. Really well done.
Yeah, it's one of the fun things about writing something with this amount of material for it is whatever you're writing, there's always something. There is always a reference or a name or something you can pick up and apply to whatever you're writing.
And it's a great callback to established canon. They've been really doing a good job with that in Strange New Worlds. Of having... It's like they're breaking canon left and right, and then they have these weird insertions of like acknowledgement of how things don't jive with canon or how they're changing canon. Just really well done. Absolutely enjoy it.
Yeah, no, I did like what they did with the eugenics wars in the last season. Yeah. And actually, aside from anything, actually casting Khan as an Asian for the first time as well.
One of those things where you don't really got to think about it. And be
you
like,
don't think Ricardo Montalban fits with the implied ancestry of his character? I don't know what you mean.
Well, I mean, he does it better than Benedict Cumberbatch. But
which is weird. He's such a great actor, and just
yeah.
I never believed
not all cons are
as
equal.
Khan.
Yeah.
Let's move on before we get canceled.
Yeah, let's move on. Let's talk.
Yeah,
let's
talk there's a whole rant I have about that, but that's not
neither here nor there in this case. But let's move on. So after that, we get a look at the various facilities on board the Cerritos, and I don't know if I have comments on all of them, but we can kind of breeze through some of these. The transporter room, for instance. Yeah. Oh boy, poor Lundy. I mean, I don't know why Boimler gave him a section to write about. I think the entire joke there, the best part was like Boimler just truncating his text and then making a note about truncating
I gotta know, though, did the whole segment, it really gave me, I don't know if you ever read it, but O'Brien at Work, the webcomic, it really gave me vibes of that.
Yeah, no, I don't know if I was consciously thinking of it, but that was definitely there in my brain while I was writing it. It's the most underappreciated job, isn't it?
Yeah. I felt like O'Brien could have easily turned into a Lundy if he had less strength of character, possibly. Like, he could have evolved into a Lundy.
I mean, I think it's less strength of character, more just being forged in hardship.
Yeah. Perhaps,
Maybe it's the whole hot wife aspect. Maybe Lundy just needs a hot wife, and that'll solve all of his problems. At that point,
he's two singles.
At that point, it's just like, my job really sucks.
We do not know.
I'm gonna go home at the end of the night. You know what's waiting.
We don't know that Lundy doesn't have.
That's true. We're making suppositions.
I'm assuming so. I mean, like, I feel like if he had a hot wife, she would have popped up at some point by now.
We don't know. There's a lot of stuff we don't know.
He doesn't want to bring his personal life to work. He's got very healthy boundaries.
There we go. He's got the separation.
Apart from when he's, judging your weight by sight.
Is that really a thing that transporter operators do? Do the transporters not have some sort of sensors for that? Lundy,
they built in the scales.
I feel like Lundy is half-assing his job.
I don't know. I think it's you've got the instruments there, but you also have to use your own judgment. I think that's just part of the craftsmanship.
Yeah, like according to your record, you're 5'6", but like, come on, man. 5'6", like you're half the size of the door frame. There's no way you're 5'6".
On the one hand, you've got all of the figures there on the computer records. On the other hand, everyone is surrounded by machines that can make nachos appear. on demand. So sometimes you have to wait.
All right, let's move on to the next facility mentioned. So conference room. So I love this because it says conference room duty exists. So first of all, like there's having conference room duty, that implies like when I read that, I thought of, and we were talking about Star Trek 6 earlier, I'm imagining like the servers and waiters and stuff in Star Trek 6 with the white gloves that are like leaning over people and like refilling their glasses of water.
Yeah,
is that what conference room duty is? Or is it like cleaning up the
We've seen it. We've seen it in lower decks, right?
Yeah, it's like cleaning up the conference room.
Yeah.
Is that conference room duty?
No, it's when you're just there in the background to hand people glasses of water, to press the button on the PowerPoint presentation, just generally being there as a sort of general grunt who is largely just standing there doing nothing, which is why you need to come up with innovative ways to make the job a game.
Yeah, and that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
We've seen it in lower decks before, right? Like, haven't we seen the lower deckers on conference room duty? I feel like Mariner and Tendi have both been on it.
Just 2 quarters, I think I would have mentioned, because there was a lot of controversy over the gag about curtains. Because it mentions that they don't have curtains in one of the comments. And when my editor read that, the first thing he said was, well, surely they just have dimmers in place. So I was like, oh, maybe, but it's never mentioned. And then that week, Friday night, Picard Season 3 starts. And the whole plot of the episode hinges on the ship turning around and sunlight just shining into the captain's eyes because there's no curtains. So I'm DMing my editor, smugly pointing this out. And then a few weeks later, we get the scripts for Lower Deck Season 4. And right there in like the 3rd episode, they have a whole thing about they have dimmers. So
yeah, that was classic.
We went back and forth on that one a few times.
I've always kind of wondered if there is like crosstalk on what the different shows are doing, or whether stuff like that is just like a happy coincidence.
It is odd that we've had, I think, that you have like both series doing a Starfleet museum episode in the same year. I think it's coincidence, but it's weird when they turn up like that.
It's entirely possible it's one of those where it's all like a cultural zeitgeist thing where there's something that has like happened in the world that has got us all thinking about something. So when writers are writing stories, they include things. And when you're watching it in retrospect, you're like, I have no idea what's going on, why they're all thinking about this particular thing. But it's like, oh, well, they wrote this a year ago, or they started thinking about this 2 years ago. And now it's all like, we don't remember why this was in our minds at this time.
One of my favourite ones is the Salamander episode of Voyager. The episode that is so legendarily bad that even within the series, they just decided this is canon. This never happened. And that episode has now been confirmed canon in Prodigy and Lower Decks, which is more than most episodes. It is extra canon, if that's a thing.
I've noticed a weird thing about like new Star Trek is there are a lot of episodes that kind of make people scratch their head and go, what's going on here? And new Star Trek tends to reference those a lot more than the really good episodes.
Kind of borders on like fourth wall breakage.
It's just the fantastic weirdness of the universe, isn't it? It's you have all of these completely out there things happening, and it's just background history to them at this point. I love when they bring stuff in like the giant Spock and the salamanders, and just I think Star Trek often likes to pretend it's this sort of very serious 2001 style sci-fi.
It is
but
not.
I think the real joy of it is just how much silliness is in there.
Well, and there's a lot of it where it's all like, a lot of times they throw away like scientific accuracy to tell their allegory. And there's not necessarily anything wrong with that, because Star Trek has always been much more story and character driven than science driven.
Yeah.
Science is always one of those things that it's like it's a part of what they're trying to use as a vehicle, but it's not the defining characterization of what they are.
Yeah, I think it's telling that if you look back at the sort of original like writer's guide for the TOS, that the sort of, in fact, even before that, back to the original pitch for the show, the idea was not alien planets so much as alternate Earths.
Yeah.
And that obviously has changed a lot, but I think that DNA is still in there right through to the shows we're seeing now.
And honestly, you know, some of the best episodes of the entire series, Voyager kind of departs from this, but a lot of times it's just about if these characters were all humans, the story wouldn't change at all. It's just about humans experiencing things, you know. I'm always drawn to the episode in DS9 where they find the alien planet inhabited, that it's only one man and this holographic world he's created to make up for his loss. And it's just like, man, that is such a great story, but it doesn't require aliens. That guy could have been a human.
Yeah.
And it's still a really good story.
Yeah, my favourite Strange New World so far has been the one that just straight up rips off the ones who walk away from Amelis. And it's just brilliant. It's just taking this sci-fi story idea that is just about humans and just going, here it is.
Yeah, but even then, you know, they have the episode again. I love that that Ursula K. Le Guin story. I reference it quite frequently, but like they do that a lot, where they have entire episodes. The number one episode where it's revealed that she is actually a member of a genetically engineered alien species, and the whole story is about that shouldn't matter as much as who I am matters. It's just such a great story. They do that a lot in Strange New Worlds, and just fantastic storytelling. I don't even know, how did we get here? Stavros, what were we talking about that led us to this?
Yeah. Any final thoughts on this before we get back to
I was just trying to remember where our tangent started from.
It had something to do with conference room duty. We went from conference room duty to stories that are sci-fi, but if they only had humans, you wouldn't notice that it's space sci-fi. It would just be...
It's good conversation. We are getting off track.
Yes.
Perhaps we should go back to wrapping up discussions on conference rooms.
Perhaps we can. I have nothing else to say about conference rooms.
All right. This is a lot about conferencing, so let's go on to I was going to mention the captain's yacht. So I know prior to the season, we only get like this brief views of the captain's yacht, and I think the text even says something to that effect, but sadly in the finale for season 4, it does have a more prominent role. So it sounds like that that came out kind of after the time it kind of expired to write this part of the book. Is that about right?
Yeah, well, I think canonically this was written between the Ferengi joining the Federation episode and the final two-parter. So
okay, that makes sense.
The captain's yacht hasn't been taken out yet.
Yeah.
This is a canon exclusive for the book, actually, is the name of the yacht only got legal approval while we were in the process of drafting it. So this is the first place to reveal what the captain's yacht is called.
Do we want to share that, or should we leave that for people to actually buy the book? And
buy the book, kids.
Yeah,
you want to know the secret.
You have to buy the book to know the name of the yacht.
Yeah.
Or go to Memory Beta or something. I'm sure someone's put it online.
The one I really want to talk about is obviously the rubber ducky room.
Who doesn't want to talk about the rubber ducky room? Come
Yeah.
on!
Amazing. I mean, not only canonized before, but now it's like hyper secret. I mean, the fact that I think on Lower Decks when it was talked about before, it was all about like, don't you want to like visit the rubber ducky room one last time or something? And now it's just become this hyper secret thing. So amazing gag.
I feel really bad because I've actually come across forum discussions where people are trying to find a way to see past the redacted text.
Yeah.
I mean, I certainly didn't spend an inordinate amount of time trying to decipher what the text actually was behind the blacked out sections. Not at all.
It's lorem ipsum. I just wrote the words that you can see with redacted written between them. So, yeah, I'm sorry.
I love it.
But yeah, it had to be included.
Well, I guess the mystery of what that room is will continue. But yeah, finally, let's the ship's mess and the crew lounge. I lumped them together because the Cerritos have these diplomatic facilities, and it's nice that we get official names for both of them. I'm sure it was on Memory Alpha before, but seeing it in print there was good separator for me to know the difference between these two. But I think perhaps more concerning is, and I don't know if there's precedent for this before in Star Trek, but apparently the ship's mess replicators can make live animals. Is that Are there ethical implications here?
I think there's probably
you can make live Gach, right? And
a
Gach
barrier between like sentience and non-sentience, or even sapience, where it's all like, oh, because previously didn't they mention in this very book about replicating sentient beings somewhere? Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, that does get mentioned at some point. So
it's something that comes up. I feel like the replicators could probably do it, but like for Gach, they're not gonna balk, you know.
Well, how complex a life form is a Gach?
Exactly.
Is the question. Are we talking about something with? Yeah.
Okay, I'm just bringing it up. I mean, it feels like where do you draw the line? What can replicators create?
Well,
is
it's
it only
basically
food?
a small transporter, isn't it? There's not actually. It's basically just a matter of decision making whether any given atomic 3D printer device is a holodeck or a replicator or a transporter beam.
It's basically the equivalent of holodeck safety protocols. You are trying to replicate a sentient being. Are you sure you want to do this?
And as long as you turn off those safeties,
DS9,
well,
right?
the real test is, whether. I mean, can Dr. Turner replicate Beta Z? That's what I want to know.
I mean, probably, but it's probably not like a whole Beta Z. It's like they mentioned they use artificial Beta Z now. So it's probably like, hey, I want a Beta Z steak, and they get a Beta Z steak. And maybe they insert it with a little of the wriggle. God, we're going down a dark. Yeah.
This is a rabbit hole. I'm kind of sad I brought this up because now just the body horror, in the mess.
There's got to be something in eating a meal that knows how much you're enjoying it. The meal that can actually empathize with you while you're eating.
Well, to be fair,
has to be a sensation.
You probably don't even need to It's no different. Probably creating a thing that is a worm and creating an NPC in a video game that behaves like a worm. It's a basic algorithm. It's not intelligent.
Well, yeah.
Exactly, Stavros. Well, everything that you try to replicate in a replicator is programmed in, right? Because there's tons of examples where people try to have a particular food and the replicator is like, I don't know that pattern. And you're like, figure it out, replicator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of like, hey, if I go to a replicator and I'm like, I want Cajun chicken, it's not going to replicate me a whole rampaging chicken that's been doused in Cajun sauce. gonna be like a cooked meal. Yeah,
Well,
like some people are gonna
A live
leap out and be
chicken
like,
tossed in
"Oh, God,"
cage and stuff.
and start like stabbing people, and people are gonna be like, "Why is this thing like covered in sauce?" Yeah, that's not gonna happen.
I feel like the Boimler, when Boimler like has the malfunctioning
God.
replicator, that episode in season 3, I think, like there was only one step
Now
away
I want
from,
to see that
from Cajun
episode.
live
Yeah.
frozen
God,
chickens
Stavros.
sprouting from the mess.
God.
Anyway, moving on. The only other thing I wanted to say is the connection between Honus and Ensign Levy. It makes too much sense, man. How did I not see that before?
No, they're clearly buddies.
Yeah. I don't even think that's something that need to be called out. It's just so
Yeah,
obvious,
gotta be.
the connection. I mean, I never made the connection,
Yeah.
but having read it
Yeah.
now, it is my headcanon.
Yeah.
Totally. Am I missing anything else about any of the facilities, or shall we continue on?
Let's see. No, I think we've covered the essentials there.
Yeah. Okay. The Admiral Picard contribution,
What about
I
it?
refuse to believe was actually any Picard.
We got like 3 lines from him. I
Yeah.
believe it was Picard.
I don't know.
It's quite the technobabble, isn't it? If you get one shot at writing Star Trek, you want to write a bit of Picard's speech. That's one of the things on the bucket list. So, as far as I'm concerned, yes, that is a genuine Picard speech.
Wow. Okay. All right.
So,
I'll take it.
Your mileage may vary.
You know, if it had been a long paragraph,
Indeed.
I might have actually been like, I don't know. But the fact that it gets hijacked like 3 sentences in, A++, cannot reject.
Well, after that, I think all we've got left is the
Oh, wait,
races.
we're not going to talk about Mariner's
write-ups.
response to Picard's
the-
bit?
Oh,
So
you
you
want to?
broke the Prime Directive.
Yes. I love the fact that Mariner calls out that Picard would rather get stabbed in the heart than be a lower decker.
He doesn't know how right she is.
Literally the entire plot of one of TNG's worst episodes, Tapestry.
Oh, one of its best
so
episodes.
good.
Worst. Wow, we've destroyed what remained of our
you know what?
listener base here.
You know, if people who think that Tapestry is one of the best episodes of TNG are listening to us, then you know what? I'd rather get stabbed in the heart than keep doing this episode.
The material it gave Q Picard shippers alone is it worthwhile.
Oh god, I didn't realize those were shippers, but it makes
I-
sense that they
well,
exist. So
The
That is
entire
actually
overarching plot of TNG is just Q trying to flirt with Picard.
That is actually one of the biggest things I had a
It
problem
makes sense
with
now
with
that I
the
think about it.
Picard series was they really, I don't think they nailed Picard
Enough flirting.
and Q's relationship. There was like something really deep there between the two of them
Because
that
he wasn't flirting enough.
I don't know if it was flirting. But you know what? It felt very shallow. Like outside of the whole Q forgetting how much humans aged in such a short time. Outside of that, like everything else seemed very shallow. And I don't want to shit on Picard any more than I already have. So, next thing.
yes, let's talk about races.
Oh boy, I love this segment.
Yes.
First of all, the Vulcans. I mean,
You know what,
I'm not going
Stavros,
to. I don't think I
Stavros,
made notes.
I'm
on
going to
every
stop you
single
right
race,
here.
but- Yeah. Yeah.
Vulcans
Okay, I'm ready.
don't have nachos. Like they have a problem with nachos. That doesn't make any sense.
They don't like to touch their food.
Well, you know what? Get some freaking chopsticks, man. Actually,
Chops. You're gonna eat chops.
I have a real
nachos with
problem
chopsticks.
with admitting that I am wrong. So I'm just going to stick with the Vulcans with no nachos is bad, and you should feel bad because I'm never wrong, and I've taken that stance, and I am sticking with it.
I can respect that.
All right, Chris. What's your take?
I think it's taking a crispy food and then making it soggy. That seems illogical. You have to touch it with your fingers. I don't think Vulcans are big on nachos.
Spock probably like nachos.
I mean, Spock would.
Yeah.
That's because he's half human, man.
We're gonna get to Spock.
The,
We're gonna get to Spock.
Enough
but
nacho
not right
DNA
now.
in him to want the nacho.
I definitely couldn't see T'Pol eating nachos.
But yeah, the main
I can see her
thing
poking it.
with the Vulcans was I just wanted to call out the idea that they don't lie or tell jokes, because that is all they do.
That is like, well, and that's really good from a writing standpoint, but also from the design standpoint, it was really well put together. I about died when I hit that response from Talin. Was just hilarious.
Yeah, I'm glad Talin got to provide some input on that one. That's good.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's. I'm going to speed ahead to Andorians. So Jen's comments, obviously having to do with her failed relationship with Mariner.
I don't know what you're talking about. She's talking about Andorian human relations, as in diplomatic relations.
Yeah, clearly.
I think you're just reading something into that.
Yes, well, I mean,
that isn't necessarily part of the text.
Well, if we were to read something into there, is that redemptive at all? I mean, Aaron and I are upset about how
though I actually my opinion on this has evolved, because you know what? It wasn't just men.
Okay.
It wasn't just men. It wasn't just Jen that treated Mariner bad. Like, everybody did. Jen was just the worst.
Everybody
did.
Yeah.
But, so did Boimler.
Yeah.
I think the only thing we're missing from that arc is Jen apologizing. So, you know what? I know that you're listening, McMahon. Just give us the Jen apologizing moment. Make it happen.
Just one simple line. That's all it takes.
Well, I think she's still got a lot of stuff to work through.
Well, I mean, we don't need to see that on
much
screen. It's been a whole season. She's had plenty of time to work through it in private. Get it together, Jen. Come on.
Yeah.
That's fair. Okay. Well, moving on to Tellarites. Durango's editions comments were also awesome. I got Captain Shaw flashbacks here. We're just like, no, just said over and over. I feel like I need to see Durango, a meme of Durango doing that, just to complete the headcanon here, but I appreciated that much.
And then, we got humans.
Oh, boy.
Yes, humans.
I feel like this human bit was not written by humans.
Well, no, none of the other bits are written by their own species.
Yeah, so the question is, what species wrote the human bit? Is my question.
Oh, it's in there.
What?
It's in there.
Am I really?
Yeah, no, if you read it, let's check it.
Once again, my literacy fails.
By Denopulin.
Oh my god, is that what that implication was? That is fantastic. Yeah. I very much believe this was written by a Denobulin. I feel like I could see Phlox giving this delivery of what Earth is all about. Oh, so good.
It was definitely classic. I enjoyed it. But I think that kind of rounds out the races part, unless I'm missing anything there. And not only that...
Well, Cerritos Bingo at the end.
Oh, my God, yes.
Oh, yes, of course.
And this was something that was brought up in Strange New Worlds.
Yeah, as soon as I was given the job, this was top of the list of things that I wanted to add in. Because you've got to have a bingo game for every ship now, haven't you?
Of course, yeah. That's the thing.
The real question for me, though, is through all of this book, the implication is this has been sent to the senior officers for review. And somehow, Cerritos Bingo, the questionable race portrayals, the best place to hide contraband, all of this.
Are you implying someone didn't do a good job?
That hits way too close to home. Right, we had 7 different department heads review this document, and every one of them approved it. Did none of them read it? a little too realistic.
Mariner says so right there on page 2, doesn't she? No one's going to read.
She says it multiple times.
The bit that they contributed to it.
Boimler even calls out about how we'll just leave it as is. Nobody reads this.
Yeah, but I think at the end. Yeah, I wanted there to be a bit of an arc to it, so I think the implication at the end of the book there is that Boimler actually put the annotated version into the replicator on purpose.
I love that it seemed like he was actually trying to resolve the issue, but failed miserably. That I thought was hilarious.
Yeah, what is the thought behind his putting the, unfinished annotated version into the replicator? You just done with this? Or is there something I'm missing?
I think it's for me, the arc it all comes down to the beginning of the race section, where they realise that all of this official stuff that they have in the Starfleet database is all the official take that has gone horribly wrong, and that you actually need not some Starfleet scientist reporting on an alien, you need the aliens to be speaking for themselves. And then from there, Boimler comes to appreciate Mariner's take on things and decides that actually you do need that in the handbook for the new recruits. And so he makes the deliberate mistake of sending the wrong draft to the replicator at the end.
I can see that,
But not before voicing my most important bit of headcanon, which is that Kirk is a huge nerd.
Yes. That makes complete sense. I mean, to be honest, how could you avoid that if you've seen the right episodes of TOS?
That's it.
He's completely right.
Everyone always acts like he's James Dean, but he is a massive nerd and a stickler for the rules.
That was the big thing about Star Trek. Like, I remember talking to, older fans back in the day who were like, I remember when this came out and I was in my 20s or 30s, Spock was us. He was a smart guy who was charismatic and loved to get out there and was gregarious. But yeah, he's also a dude who is intelligent and capable and well-trained and, an achiever and wants to make things happen. And that was just such a great callback, was like there's no strict dichotomy there between his being, a charming guy and also kind of being a nerd.
Yeah, there's a great essay by Charlie Jane Anders where she talks about Where No Man's Gone Before. And she describes it as basically Kirk's origin story, where he has to choose between Spock, who is this nerdy, practical stickler for the rules, and his best mate, who is more of a sort of let things go, womanizer, more roguish, more, like people think of Kirk now character. And his whole first episode is him choosing what sort of captain he's going to be by having these two friendships put in opposition.
That is actually a fantastic concept. I'm going to have to look that up because it really does hold true to the story in that aspect of what he chooses. And that comes up over and over and over and over again throughout TOS. It's probably one of the running themes of the series of choosing, what kind of person he is. Is he going to be the seat of the pants, gregarious, do whatever in the moment thing? Or is he going to be the person who hews towards what is the logical choice here? What is the humanitarian choice? And I think that's a really great concept.
And I think it's, Star Trek is so many different things, obviously, but I think it's one of the few threads that goes all the way from there to the storylines that we see in Lower Decks and Strange New Worlds now. That dichotomy is still there with Mariner and Boimler, and with Ike and Spock, and even in Prodigy, that dichotomy is still playing off all the time.
Yeah,
completely. I love we're getting all this from just which version Boimler sends to the replicator.
Well, yeah, it all comes down to that chess game that Spock and Kirk are playing at the beginning of Where No Man Goes Before. That is what it all comes from.
Yeah, and I love that we're getting it from the flip side, right? We've seen it from the senior officers still struggling with their history and who they are. You don't really get it from the people just starting out. They try to do it from time to time with your Harry Kims or your Julian Bashirs, but that story kind of gets pushed to the side for the more bombastic in your face main characters. I really enjoy seeing this from the other side of the pool, as it were.
One thing that I think is really, really interesting if you compare The Cage and Where No Man Goes Before is the first shot in The Cage is you see the ship, you zoom in, you come in through the ceiling, and you see everyone at their consoles in the bridge. And the first shot in Where No Man Goes Before is you've got a starscape, and then the camera pulls out, and the starscape is on a telly in the rec room. Even at the beginning, you have the camera shifting to that sort of lower decks perspective.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty interesting concept. God, now you're gonna make me go back and rewatch those 2 episodes. Because I do remember there was a big difference between the pilot and the new pilot in TOS. Is there was a distinct change in the relationship between the characters, not just each other, but also in how they interact with the world. And I always thought that was like a fascinating shift of what the concept for these major players was.
But also the perspective you're looking at it from as well.
Yeah.
Because the first time you see the bridge in The Cage, it's that top-down thing. The first time you see it in the new pilot, you're in the turbo lift doors open and you're following the crew into the room and seeing it as they see it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that is a fantastic change in perspective, and it affects how the whole story portrays its characters.
Yeah. And you can tell these big sci-fi stories, but you have to keep the perspective rooted to these characters in order to keep those big sci-fi ideas real.
Crazy read into these big, grandiose discussions.
Stavros
Again,
calling us out when we're
putting
getting
a book in a
little
replicator.
Heady. Hey, we're supposed to be cracking wise about our favorite animated series here, people. Get on track.
We constantly fall into this trap of this half-hour animated comedy show, but nope. Grand questions about the nature.
Somehow we're 2 hours into deep thoughts.
So I think, we're basically we've talked about everything in the book. So I don't know, Chris, if you had to, you're the master of the content here. If you were to kind of summarize, we've already talked about the whole thing, but if you were to kind of do maybe a sales pitch or why should someone pick this up? What would you say is like who's the best audience for this book?
Well, I think it's if you've always wanted to if you always fantasized about joining a Starfleet crew and have had a fairly plausible idea of where you might rank in that Starfleet crew, then I think this is the book for you.
Well said.
Okay, so basically I would be Tom Paris in a work camp after committing horrible crimes. Well, thank you for reminding me of my failures. But
well, what are your final thoughts, Aaron?
Oh, dude. I'm not going to trash on
the
book of our guest when we have him on board. It's terrible, and you should feel it.
Did you want to, or
no? It's a style of book that I really love, where it's written in a in-universe style, where everything in there is first person in a certain way. Design work is fantastic. Visually, it is just stunning. The gags are great, and it is not short at all. It is well worth the value. I highly recommend anyone who can afford it, pick it up.
Yeah, I gotta agree that it's clearly referencing a lot of stuff straight out of the show, but it has its own jokes too, and it's very pretty. I didn't mention it at the start, but I love the cover. Whoever made the choice to go with the kind of the thicker, I don't know what the industry term is for it, but kind of a thicker, kind of bendy exterior with the very pretty Cerritos graphics on it. Great choice. Looks super pretty. So definitely a good addition to any Lower Deckers shelf. But we've, like you said, Aaron, we've spent over 2 hours talking about this. So
yeah, that probably explains why I'm all out of vodka. I do have coffee. It's really just the vodka that was in it that was gone.
There's coffee there.
if we do have time, have we got time for you to slip in one quick book plug before we go?
Oh boy,
Yeah,
do I get another book to read? Tell me what we're talking about here. Come on,
Yes.
throw it out there.
Yes. If you've enjoyed the Lower Decks Handbook, I've also written a book called Fermi's Progress, which is basically, I missed that sort of old Star Trek Planet of the Week type story where they go to a planet, have an adventure there, and then you never hear of that planet again, almost as if it's just been vaporized when the Enterprise left. And so Fermi's Progress is about a prototype FTL ship whose engine vaporizes every planet in its wake, and the crew can't seem to turn it off. So if you like weird planets and planetary scale genocide, I think you'll find it a fun read.
Wow, that is super dark. ChrisFarnell.com, though, if you're interested, website is pretty interesting. I will definitely be picking up this book myself. It seems pretty well reviewed too, so could be a fun read. I mean, obviously not the part where genocide happens. That's never fun. Actually, that's not true. I know some people, if they were genocided, I'd be okay with that, Stavros.
Wow.
But oh man.
It's a good way to stop getting bogged down in continuity, is you don't have to worry about continuity, the planet's not there anymore.
Yeah, well, and that's famously,
That's true.
Gene Roddenberry hated continuity. That was something he could not stand. And so, maybe giving an explanation, a continuity to why there's no continuity actually kind of works.
That's it. Roddenberry just didn't have the nerve to kill every planet that appeared in Star Trek. So, and I think that's my note to end.
Could have solved a lot of problems if the warp drive did that. So
Yes, I feel like probably would have been a lot less Federation out there if that's how the warp drive. So on that note, since it is the off season, I'm gonna call it a night or a week or a month. I'm not sure when we're doing this again, but if you really want to know, you can always check us out on X or whatever it's called these days. I guess I shouldn't.
Twitter.
I guess I shouldn't dead name the platform at Lower Dorks, or would you take a moment to grab your favorite handbook for your favorite podcast. Edited by a man who really should have put more effort into things.
That's you, right? You're going to write a handbook for this podcast?
I think we've established that you do all the real work on this this podcast here. I show up once every few weeks and, bullshit into a microphone. So get on board! You got a book to write.